You said yes. Again, another promotion, another title. Slightly better pay, slightly worse sleep, and for a moment it feels like progress. Then something strange happens. Your calendar fills up. Your decisions shrink. Your income rises, but your control disappears. And the worst part, everyone tells you this is success. So what happens when you start saying no? Not occasionally, not strategically, but consistently. That's when everything changes. A few years ago, a mid-level manager at a large company turned down a promotion. Not because they weren't qualified, not because they were afraid, but because they did the math. The promotion came with a 20% raise. Sounds good. But it also came with 60% more responsibility, longer hours, and a subtle shift in expectations. Always on always available, always accountable. They realized something uncomfortable. They weren't being paid more to do more. They were being paid slightly more to give up leverage. And that's where the story begins. Right now, the system is designed to reward upward movement, climb the ladder, increase your salary, expand your scope. On paper, it makes perfect sense. But the system quietly assumes one thing, that your goal is to maximize income inside a structure you don't control, and promotions are the mechanism that keeps you inside that structure. Here's how it works. At lower levels, your job is defined. Clear tasks, clear outputs. You trade time for money. Simple. But as you move up, the rules change. Your job becomes less about execution and more about ownership. You're no longer paid for what you do, you're paid for what happens around you. That sounds like power. It isn't. It's liability, because now your performance is tied to variables you don't control. Teams, markets, decisions above your pay grade, and suddenly working harder doesn't guarantee better results, but it does guarantee more stress. Now layer in the financial side. Let's say you earn $80,000. You get promoted. Now you make $100,000, a $20,000 increase. But taxes take a chunk. Your new role requires better clothes, more commuting, maybe relocation. Your time shrinks, so convenience spending rises. More takeout, more outsourcing. That $20,000 starts looking like $8,000, and that's before you factor in something harder to measure. Optionality, the ability to say no. And at lower levels, you can switch jobs more easily. You can step back. You can experiment. At higher levels, you're locked in, golden handcuffs, but lighter than you expected. Because they're not made of gold, they're made of expectations. Here's where it gets interesting. When you start saying no to promotions, you step outside the system's default path. And the system doesn't like that. Colleagues get confused. Managers get cautious. It disrupts the narrative. Because if you don't want to move up, what are you optimizing for? Time? Freedom? Control? Those aren't metrics the system tracks very well, so it assumes something is wrong. But nothing is wrong. You've just changed the game. Let's break down what actually changes. First, yet your time stops being automatically consumed. When you reject upward movement, you create a ceiling on your responsibilities. That ceiling becomes a boundary, and boundaries are rare in corporate structures. Second, your income stabilizes, not maximized, stabilized, which sounds like a loss. Until you realize that predictable income combined with controlled time is one of the most powerful financial positions you can have, because it allows you to build outside the system. Investing, side projects, skill stacking, things that compound quietly, while everyone else is chasing linear raises. There's an irony here. Promotions are sold as the path to financial growth, but often they delay real wealth building because they consume the one resource you need to build anything meaningful: attention. Without attention, you can't think. Without thinking, you default to the system. And the system is very efficient at keeping you busy, not wealthy. Now, this doesn't mean promotions are bad. It means they're not neutral. They come with trade-offs that are rarely explained. More money, yes, but also more dependence on the structure providing that money, and less room to maneuver. So when you say no, you're not rejecting success, you're redefining it. Let's zoom out. If more people start saying no to promotions, the system has a problem, because it relies on a steady flow of people willing to take on more responsibility for marginal increases in pay. It needs managers, directors, executives. It needs people to believe that upward movement is the only movement. But when that belief cracks, even slightly, something shifts. People start optimizing differently, not for titles, but for autonomy. And autonomy changes how you make decisions. You become less reactive, more selective. You stop chasing opportunities that look good on paper but feel expensive in reality. There's also risk. Saying no can stall your career in traditional terms. It can limit your visibility. It can make you easier to replace in some structures. This isn't a hack, it's a trade. You're exchanging institutional growth for personal control. And that trade only works if you use that control well. If you waste the time you've protected, the system wins anyway. So the real question isn't, should you say no to promotions? It's, what are you saying yes to instead? Because saying no creates a vacuum, and vacuums get filled, either by intentional choices or by default habits. Back to that manager. They stayed in the same role for 3 years, no promotion, no title change. But during that time, they built a portfolio, small investments, then larger ones. They developed a niche skill the company didn't fully value. Eventually, they had options, real ones, not just the illusion of progress. And when they finally left, it wasn't for a higher title. It was for control over their time and income. The promotion they said no to, it still exists. Someone else took it. Someone else is managing the same stress, the same expectations, yet the same trade-offs. And maybe they're happy with it. That's the point. This isn't about right or wrong. It's about awareness. Because once you see the math, it's hard to unsee it. More money doesn't always mean more freedom. More responsibility doesn't always mean more power. And upward movement isn't always forward movement. So the next time a promotion is offered, the question isn't, is this a good opportunity? It's something quieter, more uncomfortable. What is this actually costing me? And if you say no, what might you finally have the space to build? Now, here's the part most people don't talk about. Saying no doesn't feel powerful at first. It feels risky. You start questioning yourself. Are you falling behind? Are you becoming irrelevant? Because the system has trained you to associate movement with progress and stillness with failure. But that's not always true. Sometimes stillness is where you regain clarity. Think about how promotions are framed. They're presented as rewards, recognition for past performance. But in reality, they're bets on future output. The company is betting that you'll absorb more complexity, handle more pressure, and stay committed longer. And you're betting that the trade-off is worth it. The problem? Most people never run the full calculation. They see the salary bump. They don't see the compounding cost of reduced flexibility over time. Because flexibility compounds too, just quietly. Let's make it concrete. Imagine two paths. Person A keeps saying yes. And every 2 to 3 years, they move up. More pay, more responsibility. By year 10, they've doubled their salary. Impressive. But their schedule is full. Their decisions are constrained. Their identity is tied to their role. Now person B. They plateau early. Same role. Stable income. But they protect their time. They invest consistently. They experiment. Some things fail. Some work. By year 10, their salary hasn't doubled, but their income sources might have. And more importantly, their dependency on any single system has decreased. That difference doesn't show up immediately, but over time, it becomes hard to ignore. There's also a psychological shift. When you stop chasing promotions, you stop outsourcing validation. You're no longer waiting for someone above you to decide your worth. You start defining it yourself. That's uncomfortable, because now there's no clear scoreboard, no title upgrades, no obvious signals that you're winning, just your own decisions and their outcomes. But that's also where real autonomy begins. And here's the quiet irony. The people who say no often become more valuable anyway, because they're not trying to climb, they're trying to optimize. They get better at their craft. They think longer term. They're less distracted by internal politics. And sometimes the system circles back with better offers, more flexible roles, different structures, not because they chased them, but because they didn't. Still, none of this is guaranteed. There's no clean formula here. Saying no can backfire. You can miss opportunities that actually mattered. You can misjudge your own discipline. You can protect time and then waste it, which is worse than never having it at all. So this isn't a shortcut. It's a different path with different risks. But it forces a question most people avoid. If you're not climbing, what are you building? Because if the answer is nothing, then the system you're rejecting might actually be better than the void you're creating. And that's the uncomfortable truth. Saying no only works if you replace it with something more intentional than what you walked away from. So in the end, this isn't really about promotions. It's about control. Who controls your time? Who defines your growth? Who benefits from your next yes? Because every yes locks something in place, and every no opens something up. The system will keep offering you the same deal, more money for more of your life, packaged as progress, repeated endlessly, and most people will keep accepting it, not because it's the best option, but because it's the default one. So when the next promotion shows up, and it will, you already know what it offers. The real question is something else entirely. If you don't take it, what system are you choosing to build instead?